everybody, and welcome back to the Couchside Judges. I'm Scott Fontana. Follow me on Twitter at Scott_Fontana.
And I'm Dan Urban. Follow me at the Dan Urban. Follow the podcast at Couchside Judges. And subscribe to us on YouTube and everywhere else that you listen.
Make sure you do that and tell your friends because we got a good show.
And as always, we talk judging MMA, so make sure you brush up on that scoring criteria. It's a hot topic these days.
Once in a while.
Yeah.
We are definitely in the full moon phase of that, right?
Yep.
But as I said before, this is a Wednesday edition.
Wednesday.
We delayed it a couple days. This is outside the norm. Won't be something we expect to be doing going forward. But, here and there, things happen. You never know. But we decided to postpone this week's show a couple days. In light of some unfortunate news from Dan. So, Dan, you want to take the floor here?
Unfortunately, my my puppy Radar crossed the Rainbow Bridge.
It's a tough time.
And that's it, man.
It's a tough time, man.
So we had to push it back because I couldn't watch the rounds through all the tears, and now I'm struggling talking about it now.
I've been there. I've been there too, brother.
He was the best, and I just hope he's happy. I know. Real quick story, when he was a puppy and my grandma lived with us, every afternoon when no one else was around, he'd go upstairs and, he had a treat buffet every day. And it was funny. My dad made the joke that the buffet is back in business now, up in heaven. So
I get that. Yeah. I get the joke now. You'd said that in your social media post about that.
So
yeah.
He was the best. All right.
He was a great dog. I enjoyed Radar. I'm going to think of him every time I come over still. He's a good dog. But you know what? We've got some business to take care of. A lot of business. This was like a crazy kind of week for us to deal with all these rounds here.
3 events. Yeah.
3 events. That's why. I mean, it has nothing to do with the fact that there was like good or bad. Actually, the judging percentage-wise was quite terrific. I'll get to that in a little bit. But there was that. There was, like I said, 3 events. Each of them had a few rounds that we could have considered at least. We also had some crazy refereeing instances over in Las Vegas for the UFC event. And then there was a California State Athletic Commission MMA Officials Zoom call that happened just today, Tuesday, the day that we're recording for Wednesday's show. So because we got delayed a little bit, it actually opened up the opportunity for us to talk about something that doesn't normally happen. Yep. So yeah, it was a good thing. I know you didn't get to sit on the call.
Family outing to the Yankees game, which they won. So
they did win.
They won 3-1.
Oh, that's right. I did see it. Was Garrett Culp had a good pitching.
Garrett Culp pitched great.
Had a good outing, right?
Yeah. Solid performance.
Complete game or?
No, 7 1/3.
Okay. Still good. Good enough.
Quality start. Yeah.
That's quality start is 6 innings and 3 runs.
3 or less runs.
3 or less.
I think they should bump it to 7 innings.
But that should be what's better than quality?
Super quality.
Super quality. That's not a word, but we're gonna go with it anyway. Super quality starts. Yeah, 7 innings, 2 runs. That would be a super quality start. I would 2 or
like
less.
That. I think David Cohn agrees with me, but we're not a baseball podcast because I could talk about this all day.
That's true. We're not. We should switch over to, again, that California call. I think that's what we lead with here. And again, you didn't sit on it because you were at that game, but I can fill you in on some of the elements. I mean, and these are things that actually I had the opportunity to speak with Sean Sheehan on his program about the call because he also sat in on it as well.
Yeah, I'll probably listen to that after we get done here.
You should listen to anything I say.
Yeah.
And that would
I didn't know you guys were doing that. So that's pretty cool.
It was spontaneous. It kind of just really came about right after, and I was like, yeah, I got time. Let's do it. So I encourage anybody to listen to that. But to hit a couple of highlights, what happened during this call was we watched, and it was, when I say we, it was me, Sean, Laura Sanko, Andy, of course, running the call, a couple people from California State Athletic Commission, and that comprised the 160, 170 people who were on this call.
That's a big call.
A lot of officials. Just about any judge or ref that you can think of was probably on this call. And most of the ones you can't either. Maybe not most, but a bunch of the ones that you couldn't think of. And massive call, a lot of minds understanding the sport. Really great to have that type of population sit in and talk about and listen to and score the rounds that they did. they chose 2 rounds from Kai Kara-France versus Amir Albazi, which of course was the big thing 2 weeks ago. Rounds 1 and 4, the 2 split rounds. We went over those on our program, and you can listen to our thoughts if you go back a couple episodes to episode number 243. But for now, I can sum up by saying, and I can't direct quote anybody. This was something that Andy Foster asked of the media in attendance to not directly quote, but give an overview. What I can tell you is that everybody scored these rounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Round 1, I'll give you the breakdown percentage-wise of how it was scored. 54% of the people in attendance saw this for Kai Kara-France. 46 saw it for Amir Albazi. Almost an even split down the middle out of 160 people, like I said.
Yeah.
That I think speaks to how close this round truly was, because these are people who actually had to watch 5 minutes of the round right before they turned their scoring, because it plays again. Everyone was asked to watch it even before that. A bunch of people had already done so in their own, recreational activity, and all 3 judges were actually in the call. So we had a lot of familiarity here with these rounds, of course. So to go down the middle, split down the middle, I think speaks to the fact that this really truly was an absolutely split round. And the conclusion that more or less Andy Foster came to was that, hey, this is not a robbery. We have rounds 2 and 3 went to Albazi. You can make an argument potentially for round 2, as I think I can, but nonetheless, those rounds went that way. So if we have a third round, that could go either way. It's already not a robbery. Totally.
Right, yeah.
Not a robbery. Round 4, a little different story. And I was fortunate to be able to hear the perspectives of all 3 judges on this round. But again, I can't directly quote, so I will have to leave that as is. But what I can say is that, again, we scored this round. Everyone scored this round, turned in their scores in the poll, and it was a 90-10 split in favor of Kai Kara-France. Now, does that mean you can't make an argument for Albazi? No. But the fact that we have so many trained minds on this seeing it as a Kai Kara-France round, I think that does speak to the fact that, hey, maybe this round really is one that we should be looking at that way for one reason or another, because that's what everyone else is looking at in that way. That's kind of the decision. And again, this is something we've been talking about for 2 weeks now. So people have had a lot of time to kind of make up their mind on it as well, right? That makes it a little trickier. But the fact that it has gone that way, whereas the other round did not, seems to speak to that. Is it a case of, volume versus, impact? Probably. I think Kai Kara-France is definitely more active. But one of the things that I thought was interesting about this round in particular was it kind of spawned a conversation about what significant strikes are and aren't. And
I would love to hear that.
Well, I don't think it's speaking out of turn to say, at least Laura Sanko was able to provide a lot of insight into that, because she is someone who actually has to work with that data in her job.
Right.
That I thought was fascinating, and I really hope that I get the chance to speak with her, maybe in a little more detail about that, because I think she probably I got the sense she had a lot more she'd love to say, but she kind of didn't want to steal the thunder of the whole show, right? But the idea is essentially significant strikes are strikes at distance. So a little peppering jab, if it connects, that's a significant strike landed. If it's it's a haymaker, that's a significant strike landed too. There's no differentiation. And I think when I watched this round, and we talked about this once again on our show, it sort of seemed like a lot of the strikes that Kara-France is landing are maybe not landing super hard or super flush or super damaging, right?
Yeah, that's what I think that was my reasoning, was because I haven't watched the round again, but it seemed like everything you landed was a jab.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, hey, look, jabs can be punishing.
You can win
in
it.
MMA.
I mentioned this. BJ Penn, Sean Shirk, perfect example. Of
I always like to highlight GSP against Koscheck, too.
And that's a great example.
That's a great one, because all he did for 25 minutes was jab him up and destroy his face.
Yeah, nerve damage for like months and years.
Yeah, he was messed up from that Koscheck. But again, the point is maybe the conversations are around the wrong thing, and I think a certain amount of education can go a long way to kind of helping people understand messaging too. I think is a big thing. I think that's something I actually highlighted with Sean on his show. Was messaging is a key thing here. We need to make sure we're getting the right information in people to be able to talk about it in the best way. And I think that goes a long way. But that was interesting to have that one. We also talked about a couple other rounds, one of which was actually both of these were from the past weekend, and neither of them was a contested round, incidentally. So we wouldn't have talked about them on our show otherwise. But one was from UFC. It was Zach Palunga against Modestas Bukauskas round 1. And this was an interesting round. Just to kind of briefly sum it up for you, this is a round where Palunga is doing pretty well for, let's say, a good chunk of the round. He actually lands pretty hard to make Bukauskas feel it early. But then in the last minute and a half or so, Bukauskas punishes him several times. Pounga's getting pounded on a few times in there. And as a result, we did have a unanimous round for Bukauskas. The judges polled in this meeting 2 out of 3. It was 66 or 67%. 2 out of 3 had it for Bukauskas. So yes, there's people can see the argument for Pounga, of course, but it did seem like didn't seem like it was the majority of people saw this as a Bukauskas round. I saw it that way too, to be perfectly honest. And I think this was round 2 was, I think, the one that everybody was a little more torn up upon. So it's a little surprising that round 2 wasn't the discussion point. We'll talk about round 2 shortly.
Yeah, we will.
We have that on our docket here because that is a contested round, but nonetheless, that was one of the ones we did. And then the final one that we talked about was on Bellator on the prelims. It was the end of the prelims. Gaji Rabadanov against Peter Boyst. Round 2 was the one on the plate here. And as I'm watching this round, just to give you anecdotally about what I was watching, this is a round where Boyst really doesn't get to do a whole lot for a good chunk of the round because he's not offering much on the feet, and then he gets taken down and he gets stuck in an arm triangle at the on the ground for a little while. And it's starting to trend more toward like a 10-8 type of range, depending on how much you can actually give that weight to the arm triangle. How do you score that as damage? I don't know. That was a little bit of a debate in the conversation as well, was whether a close submission attempt can be, damage for a 10-8 purposes anymore. Because we do have, let's say, a definition of a 10-8, or at least interpretation of a 10-8 that has slid back. And that is left us in a little bit of a quandary, right?
Yeah.
I think there's probably still, I'm sure in a lot of ways they're getting on the same page, but it seemed like they're moving away from around like this being a 10-8. Nonetheless, Boyce does a little bit at the end of the round, more or less on the feet to kind of get it back because he gets out of the arm triangle to earn the 9. And that was my assessment. They actually asked me on the call. Andy Foster asked me to give my thoughts on this. I was like, "Oh, you're going to talk to me about this? Wow." I was kind of not ready, but like I was ready to talk about it. So, and that was more or less what I had said is, I think he probably earned the 9 here, Boyce, but that, it did spark an interesting 10-8 conversation. I thought that was fascinating too. So really good call. There was a lot of stuff that honestly I just not able to bring up because if I do, I know I'm going to say things I'm not supposed to.
Yeah.
This was part of the agreement to be able to sit on these things. It's just the way it works. And but it was still fascinating. And I know a lot more than, let's say, you, the average listener, about why Kara France and Albazi was scored the way it was. So hey, if you're a member of the media, talk to Andy Foster, get on the next call, and you'll get to hear something interesting.
Yeah, and then don't burn that bridge.
Yes, yeah. We have, you agree to something, you have to stick with that. Then, I like to talk about it? Yeah, but it is what it is.
Real quick, I want to comment.
Yeah.
Would it be better if they were like, significant strikes is a stupid term. Doesn't even get mentioned in the criteria. What if we did cumulative and immediate strikes?
Well, one suggestion was made, what if we just changed it from significant strikes to strikes at distance or, something else.
Okay.
Like the idea is, hey, what if we can get the messaging changed a little different? I mean, that's for someone else to decide, obviously. But I think the point is they recognize, hey, messaging can be a problem here. If we're calling it one thing, we're obviously telling people, hey, this strike is significant, but why is it significant?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that would need to be addressed. So hopefully maybe things can go, Laura Sanko deals with these. She must know people who can work with that kind of thing. Maybe something can change in the near future, or the far flung future.
Was DC there to argue what a takedown is?
No. No, he was not. Former fighters in attendance at Laura Sanko, former fighter. Chris Lieben, former fighter, current official. He was there.
Yeah. All right.
I'm trying to think of who else was there. I mean, like I said, there was like 160 people, so I'm not going to think of everybody. But Frank Trigg was there, current referee as well, and officially does some judging too. So yeah, there was a few people who could lean on in-cage experience to talk about some of the stuff in there, which was fascinating too.
Okay. Yeah.
Just can't tell you what they said.
Sounds like it was a great call.
It was. It's unfortunate you had to miss out this time, but I hope you get on the next one.
Yeah, that would be. The times I were on was very informative.
I thought this was particularly even among those. I thought it was really great.
Yeah.
Not to rub it in.
Oh, thank you.
It's what it is. You'll get the next one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was basically. Do you have anything else you wanted to ask me or say about it?
No, I think
didn't watch it. But
nothing you can tell me anyway.
No, not a whole lot. Not a whole lot, unfortunately.
This is almost like nah. I know something you don't know.
It is a little bit of that. especially for you, the listener at home. But yeah, I think that we can move on from the CSAC call at least and head over to we got a full slate here. We do want to start before we get into the contested rounds with adventures in officiating, the ongoing segment we sometimes go to when there's some adventures in officiating. Both of the I guess 2, 3 depends how you want to break this down. 2 fights that we're going to talk about were both on the UFC Vegas 75 slate. We're going to start with Dan Argueta and Ronnie Lawrence, a fight that, it was ruled originally not ruled, but it was stopped initially as a submission, a technical submission by referee Keith Peterson. It was later, before we had the official ruling, and it was announced as such this way, it was determined to be a no contest as there was no actual tap. There was no indicator that Ronnie Lawrence wanted out of that submission.
Yeah.
And it does kind of, it left a really bad taste in a lot of people's mouths because, we had Dan Argueta who was in a good spot. Ronnie Lawrence wasn't in a spot where he wanted to give up and was told, you gave up.
You can see Keith Peterson was visibly upset. He was like,
the initial reaction was, you did this. You could hear him on the audio saying these kind of things, but you could tell probably when he got the chance to see from different angles. First off, that's part of it, his different angles. Because when you see, especially in the slow motion replay, you can tell even right before it stopped, he's alert. He's moving his eyes around in a way that is not like, your eyes are just there. He wasn't glass-eyed or something.
Right.
The legs seemed not stuck, but moving in a way that one would when they have control of their faculties. It was a really unfortunate stoppage. And like you said, Keith Peterson probably could tell it didn't go that way, at least if I'm reading body language,
Kind of, it kind of felt like the body acted before the mind could process what was going on.
Who, Keith Peterson?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Kind of feel like there was a react, because I thought he had a decent view of Lawrence's face. Lawrence wants to tap. He's ready to go.
He's thinking about it. He's sure moving that hand around, right?
I don't see a tap, but he is waving his arm like he's Hulk Hogan stuck in the Cobra Clutch. His arm's about to drop for the 3rd time to lose, but then he hulks up.
Yeah.
I don't understand why he grabbed. It was Kevin McDonald that told us he doesn't like to touch fighters, right? So he grabs the arm. I don't know because he had different options than to check an arm, right? It seemed like he had a good view of the face and, like you said, the legs and he seemed there. He wasn't out. Like, why check the arm? I don't know if that was needed. But also another point I want to make.
Yeah.
I never understood in an actual competition setting preparing to tap. And everyone does it.
Oh, you're right. Absolutely.
It has to be a reaction from being in the training room. Like, okay, I know the sub is there. You got me. But you got to get it. And then I will tap for you. Like, I'll acknowledge it. Like, once you apply the finishing portion of it. Like, I know you got me, but you're just a little bit. You need a little bit more.
Like a little bit of a bad training habit.
Yeah, it's like a bad training. I guess it's hard to turn off because I do it in the training room.
But you're not going into competitions usually.
Right, but in a competition setting, you would think that would. I guess it translates. What you do in the room translates.
I think that's what it is. Yeah, so, if you train it over and over again, you get not that these people are hopefully getting submitted over and over again, but at least not at this stage.
Well, at least getting stuck in them.
Stuck in them is one thing, sure. But when you're stuck in them, you're supposed to be practicing how to get out of them.
Yeah,
not practicing how to tap.
So that's another thing. Like, you're acknowledging you got me because I'm ready to give up.
Sure,
and it's weird.
It is, but having said that, I think it still really comes back to Keith Peterson, and unfortunately, who I still think isn't a bad official, to be perfectly honest. But
why does it always?
This is the worst place it could have happened because it happened while Dominic Cruz was in the building.
I was just about to say this. He's always. It's just a coincidence now that he's always on for anything that he can criticize Keith Peterson for.
I was legitimately stunned. I was like sitting there waiting for Dom to chime in, and he didn't say anything for a little while. I just couldn't believe that. He eventually did. Of course, he found his voice.
Well, he couldn't help himself.
Yeah. No, and Dominic Cruz is not going to miss an opportunity to stomp on someone's grave. Let's face it. But that was unfortunate.
Early in live, before they saw the replay, Felder was like, I don't know. It looked like he was going. So
Felder, I think, is a reasonable guy in the sense that, and he says this all the time. He's like, man, I wouldn't want that job. He gets it. He gets that it's a hard job.
He gets it.
And that's like, really, all you have to do is have the humility to know that, man, that's tough.
Yeah.
Because I think we do. We'll call stuff out, But at the end of the day, both of us do understand that this is a job that, at least especially me, I don't want it. I don't want to referee, especially.
The
I
thing
don't
is,
really want to judge. I think I understand judging well, and I want to understand it even better. I would love the chance to shadow judge real in person sometime to get that experience, to really firsthand understand it. But having said that, I'm not really interested in pursuing that path. I'm a member of the media, and I think that's where my place is.
Hey, they up the pay.
Well, yeah, sure, but
You have a leg up on some people, man.
$300 a pop isn't necessarily getting me to give up my Friday nights.
300
every
like
single one.
300's high.
Call, yeah,
300's high.
It is very high. But unfortunately, yes, we did have that bad situation. I would hope, and unfortunately, we had early stoppages like this before. It was a few weeks ago with I believe it was Jacob Montalvo, right? Had kind of an early situation too. I don't know what it is. I think it's just it could just be a coincidence, truly. But
I think that was a little different of a situation.
Yes, but you never like to see these fights stopped early, right? And now we've seen it a couple times, and it's fresh in people's minds, and all that kind of thing. So hopefully, this is at least a warning for other officials. Be more careful, just try to go through the evaluations talk to other officials. Don't listen to us. We're not the ones who got the solutions, but talk to other officials. See what they tell you,
Yeah.
And I'm sure they are, I think a lot of people anyone in martial arts typically has at least some degree of humility.
Typically.
Some degree.
Yeah.
Even if they don't show it, right? That's all we really had to say about that one. But the next one actually has even more to talk about, because we've got two elements of this here, right? Carlos Hernandez getting the win over Dennis Bondar. It went down as a technical decision, but even before we get to the reason why we got there, at the end of round 2, we had an blatantly illegal knee delivered by Bondar, right before the end of the round, to a clearly on his knees, no questions about it, not playing the game. Carlos Hernandez eats a knee. It was a good solid knee. He took it well. It wasn't like he was, playing it up or hurt or anything like that, but one of the more blatant illegal knees that you're going to find.
Yeah, that was. I mean, they said Herb Dean was the review official for that one.
And the main official, by the way, was Jaron Villel.
Jaron Villel was the main, and they said in the replay that it glanced off the shoulder first and redirected to the head, which I don't see in the replay.
Yeah, I don't see that either. That's not what I see.
I think
it also doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I suppose it doesn't. But yeah, I think you got to take a point there. Like, obviously,
the damage probably isn't high enough for the point. It's more the intent, or he intended to throw a knee when Carlos Hernandez's knees were down. Whether he knew they were or not, he threw them in that situation. It was reckless, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah, it's
a foul.
It's weird that it's like the word intent, because when you think of intent, a knee to a down opponent, you intended to do that. It kind of comes off as the fighter's dirty, but
right.
It's just bad wording. I think there should be something else we could use.
I believe that's a thought that we had when we had spoken to Kevin McDonald years ago. He also had kind of shared that it's not necessarily like they're not generally trying to throw the illegal knee. It's that, hey, they threw a knee in a bad situation, but they meant to do it.
There's no malice behind it, I guess. But they are fighting, so they are trying to be a little malicious.
It's just sport.
It's not Mike Tyson biting Evander Holyfield's ear. It's not that.
I mean, he was just hungry.
Oh, that's true. But I think he sells gummies now in shape of Evander Holyfield's ears.
I believe he does, actually. Him and Evander apparently famous. They get on famously, and I had heard that Holyfield forgave him in the locker room. Like, he had mentally moved on from it. He's like, it's okay, and people on his team were like, no. Yeah. What?
he's a very faithful man. I believe, I think that's what
he's different than you and me.
Yeah,
don't let him fight Vitor Belfort again. That's the end of that.
Was that TRT Vitor?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it was also 57-year-old Evander Holyfield, so that in itself was a problem. Yeah. But anyway, neither here nor there. Back to this particular fight here. So yes, Jaron Villel opted between the round because he had time to kind of decide this. He decided not to take a point at the end of that round, going into the third round. Jaron Villel was one of our ABC instructors in the referee course.
Right.
I need to preface that by saying we learned a lot of what we understand about refereeing from Jaron Villel. So it's not necessarily my place to say, hey, you're doing the job wrong. But based on what I had learned and what I've understood from talking to officials and everything like that, it sure seems like you would want to take a point in that scenario. It is up to the referee. It's always the sole arbiter, right? and he can use discretion. There was not a whole lot of true lingering damage that I think anyone would agree with.
Mhm.
So in that sense, you can see it. But man, just for the blatancy of it, I feel like that's the point. You got to take a point.
Yeah,
there.
I think definitely got to take a point there. I wanted to say there was a part right after this knee happened. He called time immediately, and there was like 2 seconds left when he called time.
Yes,
and he was very adamant, saying, "I called it before the bell. I called it before the bell.
That's right, he did.
Round's not over." Then all of a sudden, you know, it's only 2 seconds left. Just go to your corners. Round's over.
Yeah.
So I didn't understand that.
There's some weird stuff. I mean, honestly, we've seen it before in fights.
Mhm.
Sometimes just things go the way they go.
So
It's a weird sport, right?
yeah.
In that sense. I would have liked to seen the point taken. However, this was also taking place in a fight that was generally going in the direction of Carlos Hernandez. We don't know this at this point, but he is up 2 rounds to none on 2 cards, and it's split another. So hey, we're gonna be hearing about this fight again in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But round 3, right at the very end too, near the end of this round, the final round, we have another situation that comes up.
This was strange with the clash of heads.
It was so. What happened was it was a takedown. It was a
Nice slam.
nice slam, slamming into the ground. Hernandez on Dennis Bondar. Their heads are so close together that as Bondar's head, back of his head, slams into the ground, it bounces back up as Hernandez is following him down, and they do clash heads.
Mm-hmm.
You can see Hernandez lands like right above the right eyebrow, or like right around the eyebrow of Bondar. And Bondar's basically out right now. And then he eats like 4 or 5 terrible elbows.
Yeah.
And it was just like, man, and it was like, that's another thing. It was like, man, could Jaren have stepped in even sooner on that? I don't know. But nonetheless, he is starting to talk about, like, immediately you hear Jaren saying he wants the replay because he wants
Right.
to see if the heads had clashed. Now, you have the narrative going on in the commentary, like, oh, man, what are we doing about this? It was a slam. These things happen. What's he supposed to do? It's like, well, the heads aren't supposed to clash. Like, that's just kind of the way it works. Like, you can slam the back of the head into the ground. That's not the problem. That's kind of just part of it sometimes. But
And you can pile drive him as long as they have you stuck in a submission.
right. But that's obviously that's neither here nor there for this scenario. But you're looking at this and saying, well, most slams don't involve my head hitting your head.
Apparently, it happens a lot in wrestling rooms.
Sure.
According to Carlos Hernandez and commentary.
I mean, that's fine.
So-
But also, this is mixed martial arts, and there's a rule against your head hitting.
Right.
So that's the way it works. That's why we went to the cards.
So I got no issue with calling the clash of heads and then making it
Taking away what potential would have been a TK or a KO.
My issue is if you know you're going to ask for the replay already, why let them smash him with 5 elbows before you stop there?
That's a little weird.
Kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like, because if you think there's a clash of heads that you want to see the replay for, I mean, is it a finishing sequence? I don't know. That's refereeing was difficult. There was a lot of information to retain.
This was that's what I'm saying. The refereeing especially seems like the harder job and the more stressful job and the more dangerous job because realistically you've got their safety in your hands. If I'm sitting there just figuring out who won the round, it's like, yeah, maybe there's pressure to get the right person, but man, if I pick the wrong guy or I pick the right guy, they're not suffering any more damage because of it.
Right. Yeah.
Or being prevented from doing more of their job because of it either.
It was just a strange, and this also goes back to why the criteria is written so
vaguely
vague. Yeah, because crazy stuff like this. How do you throw this in there without having a 50-page document?
Sure,
maybe longer.
I mean, I would make the case that it's probably still just a little too vague.
Yeah,
I think
it can be tightened up.
I think we can tighten it better than we do, but it's also, you're absolutely right. I've come to accept that there is a certain amount of you can't have every scenario outlined in mixed martial arts scoring or in the rules or anything.
Who would even remember them all?
Yeah, I mean, we have a billion rules. The rule book in other sports is massive, of course, and it doesn't necessarily need to be that big, but it would be nice if it was, let's say, more scenarios were spelled out a little more clearly and more especially in the scoring. Can we kind of just better outline what certain things mean? I think we made progress in the last time. I don't think anyone is pushing for a bigger overhaul of the language in the scoring criteria, but I would certainly like to see it. I have many thoughts. And I think we talked about potentially doing a show on that.
Yes,
Sheehan wants in, so whenever we do,
right.
we gotta get Sean in.
That'd be a great conversation.
That'll be fun. I think that will be a really, really great conversation whenever we do get around to that. But that's for another day. We should also point out that during this, final thoughts here, at least from me on Hernandez and Bondar. While we're trying to figure out what's going on, there's a lot of hand wringing by the commentary team of, oh man, what are they going to do? You don't want to make it a no contest.
Right,
It's
yeah.
like, but guys, it's the third round. In the third round, you go to the cards.
It was never going to be a no contest.
It was never going to be a no contest. Eventually, they did get, they cited Mark Ratner, who's also on the call, by the way. He was on that CSAC call. He was able to provide the information that, yes, if this is ruled to be an illegal blow that ends the fight, they will go to the cards because they've had 4+ minutes to score round 5. It started it all, so that's why they would do it. But they actually were able to very easily evaluate what happened in this round. But that's on the commentators need to know that. That's a basic rule. Like when it's the third round and there's a foul, what's supposed to happen? I have heard that it might have actually been on Aaron Bronstetter's conversation with Mike Mazzulli, if I'm thinking correctly, because I remember hearing this anecdote, and I think it was from that. And if it wasn't, go listen to that anyway, because Aaron did a great job on his little series about officiating. But I want to say that he had asked a bunch of fighters if they knew what happened in such a scenario, and only one knew it. Do you know who it was, or do you remember who it was?
Aljo?
Gegard Mousasi.
Well, okay, that makes sense. I mean, guy's been around for 100 years.
He's been around a long time. He's been in all different scoring formats and different countries and different promotions. He's been all over the place, right? From Pride to Strikeforce to UFC to Bellator, all over. And I know I'm missing things in there. Dream, everything. But yeah, so most fighters don't seem to know. The commentators really ought to know this rule. It's something we see it. It does happen, and they just don't retain it from time to time. You got to remember this, guys. We need it. Yeah, the people at home need to understand. They're relying on you.
Anik would have known.
I think Anik would have known. I believe it. John Gooden would have known.
And Gooden would have known, yeah. Gooden's very good.
Yeah. I think Laura Sanko would have known, too. She's taking the courses. She's taking the courses.
Before we move on, if there's any judge listening.
Judges don't listen to the show, sorry.
So if it's called it's ruled a technical decision, do you weigh, due to the illegal head clash, do you weigh those elbows since it's being stopped because of a head clash? Do those elbows count as strikes that you are scoring?
That's a weird question. That's not a bad question.
So that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. I mean, in theory, they would count because they're not the illegal blow.
Right. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, they happened and the fight wasn't stopped before them. So in theory, that should I mean, I don't know. I'm talking out the answer and guessing. But yeah, that would be interesting to know. I hope we do hear from an official.
The whole situation of allowing, if you know there's a clash of heads and you're going to ask for a replay, why continue it? Why not just step in right away? That's probably my biggest question. What the procedure for that is. Essentially,
what we had though was a lot of weird officiating going on in Las Vegas, and I think we covered that probably thoroughly enough, right? Let's move on real quick before contested rounds. Let's touch upon the unanimity report of the rounds from. And
I know what that word means.
Unanimity.
I didn't even have to look that one up.
That's right. Well, we talk about unanimous, so I would think so.
Yep,
my friend. I've also used that on this show.
It's just a different version of the word.
That's right. You are good, sir. Las Vegas. We had 19 out of 24 rounds scored unanimously for a 79.2% rate. No 8-9 splits here, though. Bellator 297, that was over in Chicago. 30 out of 34. Yes, 34 unanimous rounds. 88.2%, and one of them being an 8-9 split. So only 3 times out of 34 rounds did the judges disagree on the round winner. That's a really impressive rate. PFL 5 over in Georgia. 12 out of 16, 75%. Lower volume, a lot of finishes, fortunately.
Heavyweights.
Lower
level heavyweight.
Women's featherweight as well.
Featherweight.
We had a lot of finishes there. Women's featherweight can go either way. So can heavyweight, realistically. But
I was looking forward to that original topic, but yeah. Forget. Yeah, I will get rid of those too. See you.
Yeah. Dan is alluding to we had cut a few things we were going to talk about if it was the other day. One of which was if you could get rid of a division of Bellator and replace it with somebody else.
PFL will get rid of
PFL. Will get rid of
division.
What would you put in there? What would you want to add? Just while I'm thinking of it.
They don't go below 30. They don't
have below 45.
Add 35 and 25.
Okay.
I'd be down for that.
You know what I would do?
What?
I would get rid of welterweight and add 65 and 75.
PFL is.
I mean, I also want to get rid of other ones. I would change a lot of things, but
PFL is the spot to try
they
that.
totally should, because they don't need a champion year to year. It's the same.
Mhm.
They just start anew.
Yeah.
I would love to do that. If I was running PFL, if they hire me, and I'm sure they will. I'm sure they're going to hear this and say we should probably hire him to be the CEO of PFL. That's what I would do.
And
I would
bring me
step in and
along.
say that. Yeah, you can be. I don't know. What are you going to do?
I just want a no-show job.
Okay, that's fine.
Just pay me.
Yeah, now we can do that.
Like a consultant.
No 8-9 splits on this one, by the way. You can be part of the matchmaking.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, no, that's a real
okay.
job. You would
Yeah.
have
All
fun
right.
with that one. Anyway, the overall, by the way, just to give you an idea of all these rounds together, 61 out of 74 rounds were unanimous for an 82.4% rate. That is a massive, massive win for judging as far as the numbers for a particular weekend.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean there weren't rounds in there that were like, hey, maybe, I don't know. But nonetheless, you want to be in this range. If 4 out of 5 rounds are all seen the same way by all 3 judges, you got to be happy about that as an official, I would think. Especially, again, this was a high volume weekend. 74 rounds.
Yeah.
Us MMA fans had to watch a lot, and a lot of this was concurrent because Bellator and PFL went on at the same time.
Yeah, I
which
did
I
watch.
hate.
I watched Bellator main card live.
I had Bellator on my TV and PFL on my phone.
Nice.
That was, and working on my pages for work, which gave my attention deficit hyperactivity a lot of fits. That was tough. One more order of business. I guess 2 we could call it. I want to touch upon 2 officials who worked both Bellator and PFL on consecutive nights, because I thought this was really impressive. Sal D'Amato, who came under a little bit fire for a round that we're going to talk about just in a moment. He scored 40 rounds between these 2 events. 40. Himself. Turned in scores for all these. That doesn't include the ones he sat on and didn't have to score because there was a finish or whatever, right? 40 rounds. Only once was he the out judge. 39 out of 40. That is a 2.5% dissent rate. That is amazing.
Yeah,
That's
solid.
incredible.
He's in line with his peers.
He's in line with his peers almost all of the time, or at least one of them. He's got someone who sees it his way. That, as an official, I think is something that they all strive for, is to at least, hey, are we on the same page? Good. I think we're doing the job right.
They would love for a day where there's 0 split decisions ever.
So would you.
Oh, so would I. Yeah. Yeah, I would love that.
You keep waiting for that show where we're gonna have nothing to talk about.
That perfect show.
How about an imperfect show where every round is out? I don't wish that upon the officials, but man, that'd be something.
It better be a super card.
How about it's like a 5-fight card? So it's really
cross promotion between 3 different promotions with just the best guys, and I'll be psyched for that.
Oh, and then the other official I wanted to highlight again, Derek Cleary, also worked both of these cards, and fewer rounds, but he was 23 for 23. Somebody saw it his way. That's what you want.
Mm-hmm.
That's the perfect day, perfect weekend. So great job by Derek Cleary on that one. Absolutely stunning. I think we had some really good officiating. Having said that, let's go into the contested rounds where we're going to talk about how they couldn't agree.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Starting with UFC and in the main event, which, really amazing performance by Jared Cannonier. We didn't even get to really talk about it, but I didn't see this fight developing the way it did. I didn't see it being entertaining. I didn't see it being super fun, to be perfectly honest. I think it was capable of having, at least a little bit of action, but realistically, I just didn't see it that way. These fights with especially Marvin Vettori don't always end up being a barn burner. And this one, man, I mean, it wasn't back and forth, but it was a really great fight. And Cannonier looked fantastic. I believe he set the record for most significant strikes. It was basically above 145. I think he has the record for anyone above 145. It's basically Max Holloway is most of them. Okay. I think there might be, and then there was someone at 135. I'm trying to think of who it was, and the name is escaping me.
Is that O'Malley versus Chris Mattino?
No. It was a 5-round fight.
Oh, okay.
It was a 5-round fight. I can't remember what it was, but nonetheless, yeah, he has the most significant strikes landed in a fight above featherweight, which is really amazing. Round 4, and I also want to point out the judges were unanimous on a 10-8 in round 2 for Cannonier after giving the first round to Vettori, and I think that was really great. I think we should call out the good judging there when we see it. The fact that this was scored accurately as a 10-8, because it didn't necessarily have to be, but I think it totally was. And the fact
we're going
that
to talk about it. Yeah.
All 3 judges, Mike Bell, Ben Cartledge, and Sal D'Amato, had the 10-8 there. So I think that's really great. They did disagree on one round, and that was round 4. So let's talk about round 4.
Yeah, it seems like Cannonier's shots are landing stronger, more impactful, snapping the head of Vettori back. Vettori does have some decent stretches of offense, I just don't think it's enough. Towards the end of the round, Vettori starts to land some pretty good shots and a nice head kick, partially blocked. Had a good body kick early. Decent knee up the middle. I do think scoring it for Vettori is a bit of a stretch, because I think Cannonier definitely had the better round. But I can kind of see how you get there if you factor in that Herb Dean seemed to always be in Sal D'Amato's way. And I don't want to make excuses, but every time the camera is positioned that you can see Sal, he's swaying back and forth trying to get around Herb Dean. And it's possible he's missing some of these in these when he's trying to see. By the way, I got it for Cannonier 10-9.
I also had it for Cannonier 10-9. And to be perfectly honest, and I don't really find myself strongly disagreeing with a Sal D'Amato round very often, even the ones where people go crazy on him, right? Which they do from time to time. I think I can always end up seeing it as a much closer round than other people can. I didn't see it this time. I thought this was absolutely a Cannonier round. I think the difference here is that the impact off of Cannonier strikes is just so much more visibly greater. The reactions from Vettori are significantly more noteworthy. And yeah, I mean, Vettori, I think you could probably classify this as his best round outside of round one that he won. Is 100%. He actually does win the volume on those strikes at distance. Let's always call them strikes at distance from now on.
Okay.
We're going to replace that. I don't want to use significant strikes on the show ever again. How about that? Can we mandate that now?
I'll do my best.
All right. We're going to work that. We'll work toward that. We strive, right?
Throw a flag on the play if I do.
All right. We can do that. It's fine. Right. I'll bring my flag from home. I actually got a penalty flag. It was like a fake one from DirecTV. But anyway, I think this is a competitive round. He does, like I said, win the volume. It's like 37-32. It's close. It's there's a lot going on in this round for sure. It's an active round, indicative of a fun fight, I think. But especially later on in the round, Cannonier really takes over. And I think he puts a stamp on this round in such a way that I think reasonably this should be a Cannonier round. I would even say clearly.
Okay.
So on this one, I do have to disagree with Sal D'Amato. But like I said, 1 out of 40. Can I remind people, 1 out of 40. This was the second to last round of the whole weekend.
39th round. Which brings up another.
It does bring up the other conversation of, hey, should officials be? And I had this conversation on Twitter with our guy Cody Merrow, who works on the Anakin Florian podcast. But he brought up the idea that, hey, maybe should officials really be working, back to back like that kind of thing? And it's a fair question. I'm not necessarily in love with it. If commissions feel like it's the thing to do, that's fine. California doesn't want that anymore unless they're traveling from, let's say, Vegas to California. I tend to think Andy Foster has the right idea of that, but unless other commissions pick it up, it's going to happen. I mean, officials are not going to miss out on opportunities if they can.
Yeah, I don't want to deprive anyone of work if they can do it.
I don't
willing
either.
To do it, so
I don't either, Dan. But also, it's an opportunity for other officials to get opportunities too. And I see it as like I see both sides of that coin.
But also raise that price, and maybe they won't feel the need to have to take two
well,
gigs,
certainly.
So.
I mean, maybe not. But if they start raising the price, you get more bodies in there that might actually be really good at it. Sometimes.
More people that want to
believe it or not, people don't want to do a job they're not paid well enough for,
and to get criticized left and right.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's the most thankless job almost in the world. I mean, it's not, but it certainly would probably make a list. I think probably in the top 100 somewhere.
Scrutinized for sure.
Nobody says anything good about these guys.
Did I use that right?
We do.
Right? Did I use that word right?
Which one?
Most scrutinized.
Yes, you did.
There we go.
Good job.
Getting good.
I'm teaching you well. You're gonna do well in these SATs. I know it. But yeah, so we both disagreed with Judge D'Amato here. We were in step with Mike Bell and Ben Cartlidge. Having said that, everyone ended up with the right winner here too. So it's one of those fights that's like, if you're getting mad about this, like you want the right guy, but man, we got the right winner.
It's that -5.5 point differential.
Oh, is that what it is?
I don't know. I have no idea.
On the betting, is that how it goes?
I got no idea.
It wouldn't matter anyway because it was still 4 points.
Yeah, with no finish. That's right,
or 3.5 or whatever they do, right? I was learning more about this about all the different options on DraftKings. I guess it is, right? Yeah, I don't bet.
Point spread.
Yeah. strange. I don't know who came up with that one. What is it? If it's over 5.5, that means a finish?
Over 5.5 means you got a 10-8 in there somewhere, so you won 50-44.
Or someone finishes, right? Is that how it works?
Or any finish.
Okay.
Would cover the spread.
Gotcha. All right, we're not a betting show. Let's move back to the scoring, right? And we'll go to another fight we already talked about, which was Modestas Bukauskas again got the win over Zach Pounga, 29-28 twice and a 30-27. Oh, by the way, I don't think I mentioned, but it was 49-45 twice and 48-46. That was the Cannonier Vittori score.
Mm-hmm.
So that again, that's why we still have D'Amato's card had Cannonier winning by 2 points. We're not in danger of getting the wrong guy. Anyway. Bukauskas, Pounga. We talked about round 1. Round 2 is the actual contested round here. So what's going on?
I mean, I think this is a pretty clear round. Couple shots that Bukauskas are good. They're landing, including a head kick, but Pounga nearly drops him and blasts him pretty good a few times. I think he's clearly landing the heavier shots. I think this is a clear round for Pounga. I'm kind of a little bit shocked that we are talking about this round.
Yeah, I said the same thing to myself about Cannonier and Vittori too. So I think this is lumped into that same conversation for sure. I mean, obviously it is, but I think it's another case where I feel like the winner should have presented itself pretty clearly here, and that being Pounga instead of Bukauskas.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where I would rank it in terms of A or B, whether it's the first round we talked about or this one, but yeah, either way, I do think this is certainly a case where we should have had a different round winner than Anthony Maness had. Because he scored it for Bukauskas. Mm-hmm. It was judges D'Amato and Derek Cleary. Again, those overworked judges who work in 2 events, I think, got it right here.
Yeah. Should we add these 2 to the revisit list?
I think so.
Yeah.
They have to go on the list. Okay. 100%.
We'll add them.
Yep. I don't really have much more to say other than a reminder that unfortunately Anthony Maness continues to find himself at the very bottom of the data that I track in terms of Vegas-based officials, especially who are in step with their peers. He is out of step with them. I don't have an updated data point here, but it's somewhere around 14%. That's significantly higher than what we have from other judges. They're usually more like 5-6%, maybe even better. So we're not seeing the same kind of agreement, I guess, from Anthony Maness than his peers. It's not always like this. I think this is one of the few ones that I look at from a Maness round and I say I don't really see it.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a distinct difference in the way he's getting in step with his peers than others. I hope he's able to course correct, but man, it's a competitive field there. I don't know what's going to happen, right? I have nothing to do with those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to do with me. But anyway, we do have 3 more rounds in Vegas to talk about. One of them, Nicholas Dalby, who got the win over Muslim Salikov, 30-27 twice and a 29-28. So we're only talking about round 1 here being a split. What happened?
Yeah, both were exchanging leg kicks. It appears to me Salikov's are more impactful. As the round goes on, it seems like Salikov is kind of cruising a bit, landing good to the head and body, blocking the returns. And then Dalby cracks him with a head kick, dropping him. But Salikov gets up pretty quickly and immediately gets a takedown and then just clinches to kind of ride out the round. That head kick makes it very close. But I do think Salikov had built up a pretty decent lead. And I don't think he was that hurt. Dalby wasn't really able to capitalize on it. So I'm on Salikov 10-9. But that was a big moment. So
I actually had Dalby.
Okay.
In this case, you didn't put your scores on here, so now I'll throw it up.
My bad.
That's all right. We'll get through this together. Yeah, I actually had it for Dalby.
Okay.
I think the general. I should also say I strained over this one.
Okay.
I sat there for a lot longer than I think a judge really would ought to sit there and make their decision. So I think if I was sitting in the chair, man, I'm not saying I would have panicked or something like that, but I feel like people would have been like, yo, you're going to put a number down? Maybe other officials or something like that. And, but yeah, I agonize over it because it's like, man, what do you do with that? Like there's a high damage point, but it's not, it does that make up for everything that Salikov did throughout that round? I don't know. I did side with the higher impact. So that's really where it went.
Okay.
But,
so yeah,
man, so tough.
So I was watching the round and I was like, am I watching the right round in this fight?
Right.
Because it feels pretty clear to me it's Salkov.
And then you have that moment.
And then I'm like, oh, okay, that's why.
Now I get it.
I get it. I get it now.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, I saw it in the majority with Derek Cleary and Sal D'Amato, those overworked judges working 2 events, and you saw it like Mike Bell did. But man, I'm telling you, I could have gone that way too. I totally could have. Almost a couch side override for Mr. Bell. Didn't go that way. Nothing's coming in the mail, at least for this one.
I tried, Mike.
He tried. Let's go ahead back over to Hernandez and Bondar once again. So this was, like I said, a technical decision, 2 30-27s and a 29-28. Feasibly could have been a 30-26 potentially because of the point that could have been taken or not. Neither here nor there. Let's talk about the actual scoring in the only round we hadn't already talked about, round 1.
Yeah, you know what? I gotta say, I really enjoyed this round, and I don't know why. And this was just
because it was a fun fight.
This was just a fun round for me. Very close, good striking from both guys. Anyway, I think Hernandez is landing a bit more and a bit cleaner, but Bondar, he's landing maybe a bit harder, just not as much, and his attacks are more varied. So he's not, he's to the legs, he's to the body, he's to the head. Very close. I think you got a good case to be made for each, but I'm going with Hernandez 10-9.
I also had it for Hernandez, but yeah, super close. This isn't a round that I'm going to wring my hands over too much. I think you can easily make that case for Bondar, as I'm sure Junichiro Kamijo did. We saw it with Ben Cartledge and, again, Anthony Maness. So we don't see everything opposite of Tony over there. I don't know if he goes by Tony.
And when I say Bondar's landing a bit harder, I understand you're supposed to score the impact more immediate impact heavier. It's just I don't think there's that big of a difference.
There's a balance. It's not just who landed the heavier strike. Like that's not how it goes. There's obviously degrees to it, which we talk about every week. But yeah, it can be tricky, right? Like just even going all the way back to the Karafran Salbazi round 4. I can understand why somebody could watch that round and say, hey, those few strikes that we're seeing connect from Albazi are better. They just are. They're more meaningful. They're getting closer to trying to end the fight. I get it. I didn't see it that way. But we spoke about this on the show. We spoke about this on this episode. I don't think it's that crazy to go that way. And again, when it comes down to it, it's just where's the balance between impact and volume.
Right.
You have to evaluate that every round. And that's why you can't spell that out in particular exactly in the criteria. I think that's always going to exist.
But I just want to point out that I'm not saying Hernandez's shots weren't hard.
Sure.
So they just... Like, if I had to score, maybe Hernandez was a 6, maybe Bondar was like a 7.
Okay.
When I say a bit hard, I'm not. Those aren't the exact. That's just an example.
Like a 5.5 or like a 7.28.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Gotcha.
Always use the decimals.
Always go to the hundredths whenever you can, especially when.
Did you ever see 21?
The movie?
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah, and they're the two kids are checking out girls in the bar.
Yeah.
And they're rating them. And the one guy goes to the 100th, and he goes, "I thought we weren't doing that anymore."
I don't remember that.
That just popped in my head.
I don't remember that.
Josh Gad, I think, got mad at that.
I do always laugh, I'm a gamer, as I've talked about on the show. I play a lot of video games. At this point, I've gotten to the point where whenever I see a video game rating that's like 7.2 or 7.4 or 7.38, I'm like, bro, how'd you differentiate that from the other game that was just like 100th lower than that one or 100th higher? No, stop that. Do half points. That's it.
Only can go half.
10, 9.5, 9, 8.5, 8, 7.5.
Okay.
That's what we want.
All right.
I'm good with that. I can live with the half point system.
Fair.
Yeah. Now half point system for MMA, different conversation. We'll have that another day. Another day. We can have it with Aaron Bronstetter. He's a big fan of that.
Okay.
But let's go on to our final UFC round here. Armin Petrosian, this was on the main card, got the win over Christian Leroy Duncan. 2 29-28s and a 30-27. We knew who was going to, well, we didn't know, but when you look at the cards later, it was predestined that Petrosian would win a decision unless he got finished or 10-8'd. We have a close round 3. Let's talk about round 3.
Yeah, on the feet early, it kind of feels like both guys are kind of just flowing, like just sparring. Not many forceful strikes being thrown, exchanging some leg kicks. It's pretty close until that spinning elbow and left hand from CLD. That, damages Petrosian's face. He's busted up and forces him into a takedown. On top, doesn't do much. Kind of feels like he's just trying to ride out the round, get his wits back together a bit. Even when he gets around to the back against the cage, he doesn't throw anything. I got it for Duncan here, 10-9.
Outside it for Duncan. Is there a good case for Petrosian here? I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate here. What do you think?
I think there's a case just because outside of that strike, maybe you saw Petrosian doing something more
Mhm.
that I didn't. But because to me, it truly felt like they were just flowing in sparring.
See, I wouldn't put this round in the same conversation or in the same, let's say, category as the first 2 rounds we talked about in the Cannonier and the Bukowskis fights. But I think I feel pretty solid on my Duncan score.
Oh,
I
I'm
feel
confident,
good here.
yeah, I'm
you know?
just not going to discredit and say I don't see a way to get there.
Yeah, for 20 weeks
So-
to give it to Petrosian, I don't think is crazy. It also, he knows who his winner of this fight is anyway. He
Mhm.
knows. No one else does, but he knows he gave the first 2 rounds to Petrosian. So
Mm-hmm.
realistically, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
It still matters to get it right, in some level. But he's not changing anything here, so I'm certainly not going to crucify him on this one. And I don't even think it was that crazy of a round anyway. But nonetheless, I would say close but clear. I think that's
Okay,
how
fair.
I'm going to categorize
Fair.
this round. I feel like we probably shouldn't add it to the list just because
Yeah,
we
that's
have a
fine.
couple others that we're adding to
We
the
got-
list from
we
the
got
show,
some-
right?
we got some others.
So yeah, I saw it. I saw it with you, and I saw it with, hey, look at those judges again, Cleary and D'Amato.
In step.
Add it
all
again.
weekend.
That's the CD and the SD team,
Be like,
or DC.
I can just
DC
picture
and SD.
JR and on JR and King on Raw being like, D'Amato and Cleary at it again, causing ruckus in the back,
By God, he has been broken in half. Oh, different thing.
putting people through tables.
Now, so that was it for the UFC. We're not going to go into every Bellator and PFL round. We had way too much to talk about from this event and beyond. So we've significantly slashed the rounds that we even would have thought about talking about. We can give you a quick overview of the ones that were on it without our scores, just for the hell of it. So we will at least lead with the 3 Bellator rounds we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Starting with Sergio Pettis, who got a really impressive victory over Patricio Pitbull, asserting himself as the 135-pound champion, who still has to beat the interim champion who won the Bellator World Bantamweight Grand Prix.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that he turned away a legend in Patricio Pitbull, I think, in the way he did, 50-45 twice and a 49-46, I don't think a lot of people saw it going quite that way if they saw it going for Pettis. So really great job by him. And yet we're going to talk about round 1 because it was split. What do you got?
Super close round, super technical round. A lot of leg kicks exchanged, some checked on each side, some good punches up top by both. I don't think that many got through from either side. Good defense on both sides.
And described as a feeling out round, I think accurately too by the commentators.
Pitbull's leg kicks, I think, were a tad bit more impactful for me. And it was really that right hand that he lands towards the end of the round when he's countering a high kick from Pettis that seemed to be, make me feel confident in my score going for Pitbull 10-9.
Man, I also had it for Pitbull. And
Oh.
I'm finding out now because, again, you didn't put your scores on our sheet. So I got to learn this in real time here, which is fine. But
Could be more fun.
it's not.
Okay.
Because then we have to figure out what we're going to classify it as. And
Okay.
hey, what does it mean when you and I see it the same way as the out judge here, who was Chris Lee?
Couchside override.
Gotta get ready for those. I need prep work for
Oh,
that.
okay.
That's why I gotta rev myself up and waste time by talking, right?
It's a different week.
It's a different week. It's a different week for a lot of reasons, right? But to give you an idea of who gave the rounds to Pettis, it was Judge Ron McCarthy and Sal D'Amato. They had it his way all 5 rounds. But yeah, I think there's a strong case to be made for Pitbull here. Not one that I wouldn't go either way. I think you can totally see it the other way. But
Oh, yeah.
I like my score here. I feel okay.
Yeah, me too.
Not a controversial round in any way. And also not a controversial fight because, oh my God, just imagine if everybody blew up over this round in a 50-45.
Yeah,
Otherwise, come on.
Come on.
Get over it.
Come on.
That's all right. Even us scoring nerds get it, right? 2 more rounds we'll talk about. Corey Anderson got the win over Phil Davis. Split decision, 29-28 all around. Round 2 is our split round. And who could have foreseen a couple of, traditional wrestlers going at each other being a fight like this, right?
Honestly, this round sucked.
Unless you were a wrestler. If you were a wrestler, I bet you had a great time.
I think it's close and almost clear.
Not quite.
It's basically in slow motion, a ton of
Would
clinching.
you say it's Cleary?
Oh, man.
It was on this fight.
Yeah. A lot of John Wayne punches happening from both sides. If you don't know what I mean, if you've ever seen
I
a
know
John,
what you mean.
it takes him 10 minutes to throw a
It
punch.
sure does. Cocks back, waits, throws it.
I think Anderson was better. Simple as that. 10-9. This round was horrible.
kind of a crummy round. Yeah, I don't think it's super clear, to be honest. I think it's perfectly fine to go either way. The problem is I just don't think they're doing a whole lot of scoreable, effective offensive actions. I think there's a lot of jockeying for positions that don't really
slipping
develop,
off each other.
Yeah, there's a lot of that too. There's, knees to the body here and there and things. I felt like Anderson probably just took it, but by a slim margin. I didn't even think it was that bad. So yeah, I saw it that way, just like you. Chris Lee saw it that way. Derek Cleary saw it that way. Derek Lee was a player for the Marlins when we won the World Series. Yeah,
switch hitter, right?
I think he was. Yeah,
I think he tall guy.
I don't know.
He was tall. He was like
they're all taller than us.
6'3", 6'4".
Yeah, neither
pretty
of us
tall
is
for
tall,
baseball.
So, yeah, it's true. Well,
First baseman,
like Aaron Judge,
right?
he's 6'7".
Derek Lee was first baseman.
Derek Lee was the first baseman. That's right. We're talking about Derek Cleary though, and Chris Lee.
Yeah.
They're two different people. It was Scott Jones, who spells his name wrong, by the way. He spells it with 2 T's. The nerve of this guy.
2 T's is the right
Oh,
one.
excuse me, 1 T.
Oh,
he spells it 1 T.
You got it with 2 here.
Yeah, I have 2 T's because that's the
Just
right one.
habit, right?
If you're a Scot with 1 T, that means you're just from Scotland. But that's not his fault. That's probably his parents' fault. So I blame the Jones family.
Is Scott Turf Builder 1 T or 2 T's?
2.
Oh, okay.
It's always 2.
Okay.
It's the right way.
All right.
Nonetheless, I don't think Scott Jones' card for Davis in this round was so bad. So
I just don't care enough.
Fair enough.
Like,
there's you can feel that way, but we do have to give this due diligence.
We did do due diligence. Yeah, it was a terrible round.
It was. Let's go to a different round here, which Mike Hamel got the win over Shamil Nikaev by majority decision, 2 29-28s and a 28-28, because round 1 is our only 8-9 split out of 74 rounds all weekend.
That's wild.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah, strong round. It just, to me, this is closer to an 8.5. A reminder that the ABC really needs to widen the 10-8 threshold.
And then use the 10-7, please.
Yeah, but this...
It's there. Just give it a better definition.
But yeah, just tighten it. Let's not tighten this. Let's widen this.
Yeah, widen it.
But in this round, Nikaev wobbles Hamel multiple times with punches, big shots. But Hamel keeps fighting back, and a fair amount of the round, I thought, was decently competitive when he wasn't getting punched in the face. I think it's a case where we have solid damage and pretty good dominance. I just think I need a tad bit more to get the 8 as it's written, but totally justifiable and a fine score. But in this sense, I have to go 9.
Yeah, I went the 9 too. I think 8.5 is a really good way to describe this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not quite there. It's that CSJ 8 that I like to reference. Yeah, not quite there for me, but totally defensible.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have damage in the mix, it actually starts to get pretty easy to start saying, okay. And also, like, realistically, like, for a long part of this round, that was kind of like the big high spot, and there really wasn't a whole lot. And then kind of near the end, you see Nikaev is able to kind of get another one in there. And it doesn't hurt Hamel to the same degree, but he definitely checks and reminds you, it's like, hey, this is my round still.
Yeah, a pretty strong punch from distance.
Yeah, punch from distance. Yeah, strike from distance. Excuse me. To be fair, Bellator, they just count total strikes.
Yeah,
they make it easy. They don't make it convoluted. How much that matters is a different story. But yeah, so I had it as the 9 here. Chris Lee had the 9. Scott Jones had the 9 and just 1 T. And it was Ron McCarthy who gave the 8 here. But again, that's defensible. I had no problem with that. I can see it that way. Just didn't go that way.
I want this to be an 8.
I want this to be an 8. I want a bunch of things to be an 8. And then I want a lot of things to be a 7, which we actually have some 10-7 watch we're going to get into.
Yes.
I'm just going to name check real quick a couple of rounds and round scores that were split just so we have them on there for the record. The last Bellator round was Cody Law getting the win, unanimous 30-27, 29-28. 2 of those 30-27s over Edwin Chavez. That was the opening fight of this marathon card. Round 3 was the only split here. And it was judges Sal D'Amato and Derek Cleary. Hey, the super team on the same page with Cody Law. It was Chavez got the round from Brandon Mason, who, if I'm not mistaken, was also on that call. I think he spoke up at one point. That was interesting.
Okay.
I was like, hey, I know that name. Over at PFL, there were only 2 fights that had 4 rounds. It was one of those days. Sometimes you get those in Georgia, right? Isaiah Pinson, heavyweight fight, got the win over Denzel Freeman in a split decision, an alternative decision, which we almost talked about, but then we watched and we said, you know what, this isn't fun, and we didn't want to talk about it.
Wasn't fun.
It just sucked. So we kind of skipped it, but it was 29-28 all around, rounds 2 and 3. Freeman was the majority winner in each case, but he lost the decision. Judges Nate Mann and Joe Merigliano saw round 2 for him. Nate Mann, favorite superhero. Batman's still number 1. He's close.
Judging superhero.
Well, the Ninja Turtles are also ahead, so he's probably like 3. But anyway,
Okay.
Monica Ridgeway was the out judge. Saw this for Pinson. To be honest, I actually did watch this round, and I did score it. I actually did score it for Pinson, so
Okay.
that for whatever that's worth. Round 3, Nate Mann once again saw it for Freeman. So did Ridgeway in this case. Merigliano saw it for Pinson. I scored this one for Freeman, so I only have 2 rounds for Pinson and 1 for Freeman. Whatever, this fight sucked. And then and another fight that I didn't really watch this one, to be honest, so I don't have any opinions, but I can tell you Maria Muknakna got the 29-28 twice and 30-27 over Evelyn Martins, but we were split on round 2 and 3. It's one of those where it's like, man, should be unanimous, should be easy, but it's only just 1 round. It's 2. Muknakna got Will Fisher and Monica Ridgeway to see it her way in round 2. And it was Joe Merigliano saw for Martins in that round. 3rd round, it was Merigliano and Ridgeway for Muknakna, and then Fisher saw this one as the out judge for Martins. You awake?
I'm awake.
Oh, good.
I'm
good.
awake.
I'm glad. I hope listeners are too. You can fast forward if you don't like that stuff. That's fine.
I was just thinking how it's like when you hear unanimous 29-28s, and then you see the scorecard and you got 2 rounds. And you're like, oh, come on.
I know, right? Let's go to the 10-7 watch, because again, we actually have 2 unanimous 10-8s to talk about. The first one we already referenced in Cannonier and Vittori. Great job by the judges, Sal D'Amato, Mike Bell, and Ben Cartledge to see this surefire 10-8. Was it a 10-7?
It's close.
You think so?
I think it's close.
Really?
Doesn't get there, but I do think it's close. As Vittori is hurt a bunch of times, I'm like, no way he's making out of this round. Very close to being stopped a couple times, but Vittori started answering, landed some pretty good shots towards the end of the round. I think it's a strong 8.
I would say a strong 8, a solid 8. Like this is a good 8. I don't know, man. I didn't toy with the 7 in the same way, even when I thought about it.
I didn't toy with it.
No,
I'm
I
just
get it. I
saying
get
you're
what you're
getting
saying.
close there.
I don't know how close it was. I feel like it was just like in that solid 8 territory.
He's kind of battering them a lot.
I know. Doesn't matter. They would. No one pulls the trigger anyway because the definition is too far out of reach.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when I put things on the top shelf for my kids, like, because I don't want them to get it. It's like that's what the 10-7 definition is. It's like it's up there so you can see it. We have it there, but you're not meant to get it. It's not supposed to be there for you. It's there for me to say, hey, we have it, and that's it.
All right. Would you want this round to be a 7?
Yeah.
If you could.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I would stretch the definitions like we do for CSJ.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
And a solid 8 becomes a 7.
Right. Okay.
Whereas a 10-8.5 would actually be a 10-8.
Right. Okay.
That's what we do in CSJ. That's what I would like to see. I think we have a good solution in terms of that. You want to work on the wording of it? Fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. That's the officials can do that. But I think you need to make it so that 7s are given out like 5% of the time, 3 to 5, whatever they want to do. And then, we have this new 10-8 score, a 10-8.5. That's, I think somewhere in the 10% range. We should find a definition that can kind of encompass rounds such as that.
Okay. Fair.
I don't think they need to be pervasive. I don't think we need 10-8s all the time. But I think it needs to be much more achievable, and the 7 should be achievable in some way.
I think it should be a bigger percentage than that 5% they outlined.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not anyway. It's still more like a 3 or 2. It's still like that. I mean, we'll talk about the data at the end of the year, like we always do. But man, I'm telling you, it's not there. It's not what they're talking. Maybe a judge will give it almost 5% of the time, but that's not the majority score.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the problem. But that one more round, actually, I'm sorry, one more 10-7 watch round. Pat Sabatini got the win over Lucas Almeida. Round 2 submission via arm triangle choke. But before that, round 1 was a really strong round, and the judges here, Adelaide Bird, Ben Cartledge, and Sal D'Amato, all scored a 10-8. Is this a 10-7?
I don't think so. Much of the round is Sabatini working to get to a dominant position on the ground. He finally gets there in like the final minute, and when he does get there, he puts a beating on Lucas Almeida. Heavy elbows. If he probably gets a finish if he doesn't stop throwing them. Like at some point he started working for a choke instead of just keep throwing the elbows.
Never look for the choke. Just hit.
Just smash and smash.
The scoring doesn't reward it anyway.
This was very high
Not
damage.
to the same degree.
The thing is, I think you can get overwhelming damage. The only thing is I don't think you have overwhelming duration or dominance. But I do think you have the other two strongly. Just not overwhelming.
It's tricky.
That's what I'm saying.
It's tricky. I don't know. I think I still lean no, but I do kind of get what you're saying.
So Yeah,
But you're still saying no to
Oh,
it.
this is a no
Yeah.
for me. Yeah, no. He needed more. If he did this for 3 minutes, now we're probably it's like
Well, then you're worried about Lucas Almeida.
yes, then you're right. This is much like CB Dalloway. Like that round wasn't a total beatdown for 5 minutes.
No.
But he was almost dead at the end of it.
Yeah, that.
So-
I believe, if I recall, when we talked about that round from the 10-7 show, because that was one that got a 10-7 from Judge Ben Cartledge, who again on this round here. That one was, I mean, it was almost like a 9, really, until like the last little bit where you could tell just how dead CB Dalloway was, and we rationaled it as it's not getting that overwhelming dominance into ration, right? Because overwhelming is such a high bar.
Yeah.
But if I remember the way I phrased it, I thought it was the highest damage that we had in any round we talked about.
It was crazy damage.
So if you just want to, and I'm okay with them ever just saying, okay, overwhelming damage, that's enough. That gets you the 7. Just overwhelming damage.
I'm with you.
I think that'd be okay. I don't have a problem with that. I'm sure somebody would, but I think we need to start accepting that maybe we haven't figured it out yet. We can kind of keep tinkering with the wording.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see that. But anyway, that was it. Whew, this is a lot, man. We still got to sew some things up here, like our favorite finishes. There were 5 at UFC, 5 at Bellator, 7 for PFL, a cumulative 13 TKOs, 4 subs, and 13 first round finishes. Crazy weekend. Out of all of those, what was your favorite?
Pat Sabatini's grappling clinic over Lucas Almeida, like we
Not
just touched on.
Not surprising.
Way to end it with a nice arm triangle. But you?
You know that Manuel Torres elbow?
Yes.
That was one of the nastiest elbows of the year, and we've had a few.
That's got to be up there.
Shout out to Caposa, who put together, I think, a little, or at least shared a little clip of some of the best, and this definitely should qualify.
Lorenz Larkin had to be on that one too.
Yes, he was definitely on there. But man, Manuel Torres just destroying Nicholas Mota with an elbow under 2 minutes into the fight. It didn't go very long, and oof, it left a mark.
that was one of the ones I was like, oh, like jaw dropping. Yeah, when I watched, it was. Like, wow.
Those. Man, I would pick a lot more subs. I leave a lot of them to you, but man, a finish like this, you can't do a whole lot to beat this.
Yeah.
I bet you would have picked it if you could.
Probably.
Yeah, it was good.
Probably. I mean, the Sabatini, it was just such an easy sub. Like the levels between these two in grappling was crazy.
Absolutely.
So,
but that is it. Finally, we're past this whole long, godforsaken weekend. Let's look ahead to another long, godforsaken weekend.
Busy, but it ends early.
And actually, I don't even know if I had mentioned this to you, sir. I'm probably breaking some news to you. I'm at a wedding this weekend.
Oh,
yeah. I don't know how much of this I'm going to be watching. We'll see. We'll have to figure out how much I'm actually going to watch, especially because we have an afternoon UFC card.
Hey, judges, it's time for that perfect card.
Yeah, do me a solid, guys and gals. Let's just everyone get on the same page. Or how about even better? All the fighters finished round 1.
Okay,
and then we could just, what we'll do if that ever happened. Excuse me. If that ever happened, we're going to rank all the finishes. That's all we're going to talk about.
Okay, fair.
All we're talking about is finishes.
Fair.
But there will probably be some sort of weird, wacky officiating thing too, so we can throw in.
Like if every fight ends in the first round, are the judges like, you know what? Whoever's doing the main event, they just hands behind their head, kick their feet up on the catwalk, and are just like, it's gonna end. I'm just gonna enjoy this.
I feel like that wouldn't fly.
It wouldn't. It'd be a great visual though.
Everyone's all for some. Yeah. The trolls would love it.
Oh
yeah, they would love the hell out of that. But like I said, we do have 2 events. Friday night, we got PFL. There's no Bellator. Last leg of PFL regular season. Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time, main card starts in Georgia once again. So get used to those same judges like Nate Mann. Nate Mann's probably in action. Joe Marigliano, Will Fisher, Monica Ridgway. There was another judge that worked the last one, and the name escapes me. It might
Blake
be
Grice was refereeing.
Yes, Blake Grice was on there. That's right. Who
that.
Again was the head trainer of that ABC course we mentioned. He was on the call too, by the way. But PFL, they're finishing up with the welterweights and the lightweights. Do you like these divisions? I think the lightweight's actually the most interesting of the divisions, to be honest, in PFL.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of everything except heavy
and women's
heavyweight,
featherweight.
Heavyweight, well, yeah, women's featherweight. It's okay, whatever.
It's okay,
but.
Olivier Aubin-Mercier is in the headliner against Anthony Romero, lightweight.
I like Olivier Aubin-Mercier.
You like OAM? The Canadian gangster, I believe. Is that what his name is?
OAM.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who the other guy is.
Anthony Romero.
Yeah.
That's his name.
I don't know who that is.
He's Anthony Romero.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Sadabu C is the, I guess, the top billed welterweight in the co-main against Shane Mitchell. I don't know what the matchmaking sense is behind these things. Maybe there will be upsets. Sometimes they happen. We had actually an upset a couple weeks ago with the featherweights, but these fights on paper, having not looked deep into it, seem designed to put OAM and C through to the playoffs.
Do you think that for sure?
No,
Because
no, and I don't know how PFL comes up with it. I'm not trying to make accusations either.
right, but here's my thinking.
What do you got? Nothing?
He
You got
got. I
nothing?
mean, he got a finish in his last fight. So
Sadabu C.
C.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's kind of like a decision machine. Outside
He
of
often
that.
is.
So-
Correct. But he did get that.
Two-
He got the 5.
Okay, but
That might be enough.
Yeah, it might be enough. 'Cause I was gonna get to. I didn't know he had a finish in his previous fight. 'Cause
Surprisingly, yes.
I was gonna say 6 is no longer a guarantee.
It's not. The lid has been lifted on that, but it does. It also requires an exceptional amount of finishes to happen. So that's kind
Okay.
of where we're at. I didn't even bother looking at the PFL standings, so I'm not really sure how many 6s or 5s.
We'll find out on Friday. They'll tell us.
No. I mean the one from the other day. It was too busy with Bellator and everything. Like I said, my ADD was out of control. Yeah. It was nuts. I'm just glad I made it out. And then over at Jacksonville, where the UFC is, Saturday matinee card, 3 p.m. Eastern Time Maine starts. Josh Emmett and Ilya Topuria at 145 pounds. Do you like this fight?
Yeah, on ABC.
Yep.
I love it that it starts at 3.
They really love to put Josh Emmett on
Yeah.
especially like ABC cards. I feel like he's on them a lot. I don't know what it is about. Nothing against him. I had no
Yeah,
problem with
past
it. It's
two.
just I feel like I've noticed it happen a lot.
I'd like more ABC cards. Like every weekend was on ABC.
In the middle of the afternoon.
Middle of the afternoon.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Saturday.
Except not when I have to go to a
fights.
wedding at like 4.
Yeah,
That would be ideal.
this is a good fight. This is a fun fight.
I like this fight.
Big
I
step
think
up for
Topuria's
Topuria.
a monster, but he can be hittable. So I'm curious what happens when Emmett touches him.
Yeah,
So we'll see.
very fun fight.
I like to see that, and also how Emmett responds from losing that interim title fight too.
Yeah.
That's
He seems,
how does he bounce back?
seems ready, but I mean,
Ready
that,
for what?
that could just be
To fight?
It could just be marketing.
That could be.
When you watch these hype shows,
You are a sucker.
I'm the biggest sucker. That, you know what? Honestly, that would probably get me so excited about every card if I watch like all the embeddeds and all the behind the stuff seen the week before the card. Like I'd be so invested.
I get a lot of people will talk to me and be like, "Oh my god, did you like friends who watch the sport? They'll be like,
Mhm.
"Oh, did you watch the embedded?" I'm like, "Man, no. Tell me if there's something I should watch." But like otherwise, I don't have the time to watch every bit of these. Those
Yeah.
are for the people that are trying to get hyped up. Like I'm gonna watch it anyway.
Yeah,
You don't need me. It's like the way I'm at now with movie trailers.
Oh,
I
okay.
used to get hyped about movie trailers. I was like, "Oh man, show me the next Dark Knight trailer. Inject
Right.
that directly into the veins." Right.
Okay.
Now I'm like, I know I'm going. I don't want you to show me half the movie. Like, just leave me alone. I'll go to the
Mhm.
movie. Don't even just tell me the date and I'll be there.
What about a surprise teaser?
Like what? Like
Say you don't like. There's no mention of like a new Batman movie coming out, and then
oh,
you
and
have
it's
the
like
movie,
all of a
and
sudden
then
there's a
bam.
new Batman movie
It's
coming.
like,
No, that's cool.
Yeah,
Because because you've broken some news to
Yeah.
me.
That's kind of like a big fight happening. They announce a big fight.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like no, it's even better. It's kind of like all of a sudden on that card, it's like, hey, I know you guys didn't think you were getting a main event where Brock Lesnar comes back and fights. I don't know. It's like, yeah, you're getting one tonight. Surprise!
Surprise, Brock Lesnar main event.
Oh, that'd be great. That's never gonna happen.
That would be great.
It's Florida. This is a Florida card. They usually tend to bring in some of the good judges, and even the
Mhm.
Florida judges, the local ones.
Chris Lee's local. So
Well, yeah, but I'm
should see
thinking
him.
of the ones who don't travel typically.
Yeah.
You know, like the Troy Winkapaws and the like, and
Barry
they-
Luxembourg.
Barry Luxembourg, all these people. They end up doing a pretty solid job,
Yeah.
reasonably, I think, with the cards. I think Florida has done a decent job of producing some officials who I guess get enough work and are in tune enough with criteria. So that's good too. I have good hopes. I have high hopes for the Florida judging.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll be okay this weekend, but you never know. Other fights, of course, on the card. There's a few I like, to be honest. Amanda Hibas and Macy Barber,
Mhm.
125. I'm interested in Amanda Hibas. I really didn't think she was going to catch on at 125. She totally has. I think she's really thriving here. So
Yeah.
she could find herself in the mix for a title shot
Mhm.
more sooner than later. You never know.
Never know.
I don't know if she gets
Especially
it off
since
of this,
that
but,
division got such flipped on its head.
but
so.
Macy Barber's starting to find her groove too. She's come on a lot better than I think she
Mhm.
used to be. Not a lot of people love all the decisions she gets. I
Mhm.
think I can see them, but I can also see why maybe some people don't love them. It is what it is. I like Brendan Allen. He's back in action, coming off that win over Andre Muniz, going against Bruno Silva. That's not easy.
No.
I like this fight. I like Tabata Ricci and Jillian Anderson, particularly because Anderson is a submission machine. And down at 115 now, she won her strawweight debut in the UFC. And man, if she gets going here, I think she could find herself in the mix for a title shot like before long. I think she's got enough wins under her belt that like it wouldn't take her as long as some other women to get there. So I'd be curious to see how this goes. But Ricci's tough, the baby shark. I like to see this fight. And then the opener of the card, I believe, is Tatsuro Taira, who I'm a big fan of at flyweight, going against Clayton Rodriguez.
Okay.
You like those?
Yeah, is that the opener? Yeah,
You missed anything? Is there anything I didn't note that you're looking forward to? Or
we got Neil Magny on the card.
Neil Magny's on the card. Who's he going against? It's not
Phil Rowe.
Is it is Phil a late replacement? Because I mean,
See.
no offense to Phil Rowe, but I'm surprised he's getting the name of Neil Magny.
Doesn't look like a replacement.
That's a surprising matchup. I'm not saying he couldn't win either. It seemed
lose
like they were
RoboCop.
far enough apart from what they've done that they wouldn't be fighting. So it is what it is.
We lost RoboCop, who's actually a very exciting middleweight in a division that needs excitement.
Yes, we did.
So-
Actually, there's gonna be a RoboCop video game later this year. It's not about him though, not about the fighter. It's a video game
Okay.
about like the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this fight has been moving a few outlines. It seems.
Oh well,
Yeah.
it's always involving one of these principal players here though. Zhalga Zumagulov is now scheduled to face Joshua Van. We've been saying this the last few times that he's been on a card and he has not fought either time. But man, whenever he does get in that cage, it's going the distance, and we're going to talk about it on contested rounds. I know it. It's going to happen. But maybe not this week. Who knows? Maybe it'll have to push again.
We'll see. I mean,
I hope they're paying him at this point for this stuff. Jeez.
Josh Van is making his UFC debut, so we shall see.
I don't know anything about Josh Van.
He has 0 decisions.
Okay.
But that's also not at the
UFC level is always much different.
Fury FC. It looks like he's a fighter for. I don't know what they really are.
Fury?
Fury FC. Yeah.
They're based in Texas.
Okay, so
Yeah.
he's never been to decision.
Well, he knows if he goes the distance in Texas, like, oh, all bets are off. He learned quickly.
Okay,
Kill or be killed.
Could be a great fight. He's got a calf slicer on his resume.
Hey, that's painful.
It is.
I don't like those.
All right, that does it for this episode. We'll be back on our regular schedule next week on Monday to discuss this busy weekend.
Thanks to everybody for sticking it out on this card and this event, or this episode, I should say.
It's interesting.
It was a long episode, though. I mean, we don't normally do it this long. What are we at? 5 hours now? 7?
Oh, a ton of hours.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you next week.
Take care.